Hello everyone, this is Jackie Williams, and in this video I want to take a really good look at the Bloom Where You're Planted suite, which contains the Plentiful Plants bundle. This is a really nice one when you don't want to do flowers, or perhaps when you're gifting a potted plant and want to make a cute little tag or note card to go with it. And I think it could even work for a card for the guys. So let's go to my work desk and have a look. The Bloom Where You're Planted suite has a stamp set, dies, some embellishments, and papers. Now, the stamp set is a distinctive stamp set, which means that you see the shading here. When you ink it and stamp it, you'll automatically get that shading and beautiful detail right there in the stamp. And then we have the dies, and you can see we've got some outline dies that fit around the stamped images. And we also have some standalone dies, pot hanger and some extra pots and some succulents there. And then we've got these kind of a lattice embellishment. I've just put it on white paper so you could see it better. And these make a great stencil or background or different embellishments. And then we have our papers, and you can see one side has some beautiful plants on it and pots, and I'll show you a little bit as we go along how those work. And then on the other side we have some more neutral prints with wood grains and bricks and concrete. I particularly like this concrete print. It's really nice for stamping on, as well as this one here, the little wood panels. So first I want to show you a few projects using the white note cards and envelopes. So you get these 3.5 by 5 inch note cards and envelopes, and you get 20 of each in a pack. Really good value and great to have on hand for just some quick little note cards. And the first technique I want to show you is using these paper lattices. And what we're going to do is use it actually as a mask to create a background. So I've got some gray granite here and my blending brush, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of ink. After experimenting with this a bit, I think it's actually better to have a light layer rather than a heavy layer. There, and then when you pull that away, you've got that really fun pattern in there. So you can use these a few times as a mask, and then even once it has color and ink on it, go ahead and use it as an embellishment or a layer on a project as well. So there's a couple of uses for those. So the first sample I want to show you is just a very simple note card, and you can see that I've used the gray granite and the paper lattice to create a texture in the background. And then I've used this print with the paper. Now there aren't dies that go with these particular plants, so I've just used my paper snips or very sharp scissors with a fine point and just cut around one of these and adhered that onto the card front and then stamped directly onto the card front for just a very simple project. And then this next sample is the same idea. This time I've used Pool Party in the background. And this time I have used the printed paper and the dies in conjunction with each other to create my potted plants. Now these potted plants are really great for masculine or for get well or as a little tag when you are giving someone a plant. And then this print here coordinates with some of these leaf dies. And then this one coordinates with this. And then the rest of these that don't necessarily have a die, you could just scissor cut those out or just use the whole thing as a background print. Now just to add a little bit more interest to the pot, I've just tied on a little bit of linen thread there and then stamped again directly onto the card. The next way that you can use the stamps and dies is to stamp your image. So here I've got the pot and cinnamon cider. And then you can use your die around your stamped image and cut that out. Now this is great for when perhaps the colors in the papers aren't what you're looking for. So this way you can stamp them out in any color that you wish. In addition, once your paper runs out, you can then still use your dies and create the images that work. So here's the finished sample with stamped and then die cut images. So you can see I've stamped the leaves, I've stamped the pot, and I've stamped the little vines in the background. And that's what that looks like there. And also wanted to point out this die here. It's kind of a fun one. So it's kind of a little pot holder. And then you can just choose the little pot that you want, and you can slip that behind, or it does have a little actual slit in it. So you can slip that into the little pot holder. And that would be particularly cute if you are using vellum or something where you could still see that little bar behind. And on this one, I've also added the loose flowers for these fun ones here, just to add a little bit more color to this one. And then my final example of how you can use those dies is not with the stamps and not with the paper, but you could just use it straight with specialty paper, for example. So here I have actually watercolored just a custom paper with a couple of different ink colors. And then I have used the copper brushed metallic foil to cut the pot, and then put that through the Hive embossing folder. So just basically created the shapes with just the dies and some specialty papers. So next I want to show you 3 versions of the same card, kind of going from beginner to casual to avid. So here's my beginner card, and this is just a piece of thick basic white folded in half, and then we've got that paper lattice adhered onto the front as just a nice simple background, no die cutting, just adhere it on. And then I've used the paper and the dies, so you can just die cut them out and put them on nice and easy, and then stamped directly on. I did add a little bit of linen thread and some of those nice garden gems on there. So nice and simple, but still cute. And then I've stepped it up one level, and I've added a layer, and I've got a mat of craft cardstock underneath, and then white, and then did my paper lattice. So it's kind of the same background, but just a couple more layers in there. This time I have die cut the pot out of specialty paper, the brushed gold foil. And then I have die cut these beautiful leaves out of the evening evergreen and soft succulent shimmer vellum. So there is a bit of a sparkle to these ones, and added the flowers. And now instead of stamping directly onto my card, I have heat embossed on some colored. So this is the polished pink. And I just wanted to show you how I did that, or give you a little tip for that. So when I'm stamping out my words, and I'm usually going to use like a scrap piece of paper. So if I have a piece of scrap paper this size, I will just go ahead and stamp out quite a few, because you might as well. And then I just keep a little container, it's actually quite a big container, just of my stamped sentiments. And then when I'm making just a quick card or a tag, or I can take it to my classes, and there's some things that are just already stamped that people can use. I also, just as a side note, have a container of tags that are blank. Oh, that one's not. That are just blank, so they can be stamped on and made into whatever they need to be. So to cut out your sentiment, I would recommend cutting off one of these so it's just separate. And then I have actually used the messages die. Now this one coordinates with the mini happenings and the mini messages stamp, where this is one giant stamp that stamps out all of these sayings, and then this die cuts out all of those sayings all at once. Really great. But that doesn't mean that you can only use this with those. So what I wanted was just this very small, thin one. So I'm just going to run it through my die cutter like this. So all I'm getting is that little one there. So you can go ahead and use this one with words that are from other sets as well. I also wanted to show you just a little detail here on the pot. The pot looked a little bit flat and plain when I die cut it out of just a solid piece of paper like this. So what I did was I used my Simply Scored tool, and I do have a couple of grooves on here where I've used a Sharpie marker. That way I can line something up like this, and I can see that that's the same groove from one end to the other, because otherwise it's quite hard to tell because there's so many grooves very close together. And so all I've done here was just give it a little crease, and that just adds just that little bit of detail to your pot, which just makes a difference. Okay, then our more avid card is pretty much the same card, but this time I have cut this paper lattice in half and then put twine across the card. And this time I have also cut the pot out of that gold metallic foil, but you can take it one step further and actually use your Stampin' Blends right there onto the foil. And that will just give us a little bit of a color differential. And you can use it just along one side to create a shadow, or just along that lid. I'm just gonna kind of do it like that. Just along that, or not lid, the rim, just to create that little bit of a difference. Okay, also on this one, I have added just a little gem inside the flower, and this time we've used a slightly larger word, and then I've brought the same elements in through the inside. So that's kind of 3 different versions of basically the same card. I'll put them like this so you can see them all. So which one do you like best? I'm personally partial to this one, only because I think I like that pink and dark green combo. But you can see how you can just do something very quick and easy with this bundle, or step it up to something a little more advanced. Now I have a few more samples to show you. So this is one that uses the papers, and I've used that cinnamon cider brick and the cinnamon cider wood here in the background, and then wanted to keep it actually pretty monochromatic. So I've got a cinnamon cider mat and words and the pot, and these are actually pale papaya, but they tone in very well with the cinnamon cider. So the leaves are really the only contrast here on this card. Okay, then this is one that I didn't make. I believe it was made by Leslie Scott, and just a really nice display of all the different die cuts and pots and stamps, and how that you can make this nice little scene where they all mix together. And she's also used those loose flowers in with the leaves. And this one was also made by Leslie Scott, and same thing. It's just a nice collection of how they can all work together. I particularly like this, where you've got the little pots with the big pot in the middle. Okay, then this is a card that was sent to me by Kaz Hurst, and just a nice one with that pot hanger. And actually she's trimmed off the sides of the pot hanger. So this is what it looks like in full. And then this is with the sides trimmed off, so you can get a couple different looks with that one. And a nice mix of the stamps, the printed paper, and the die cut. So you can see how they all can work together. All right, then this is one that I made a few months ago. And this one, we've got some stamping along with the die cutting, and then added some gold embossing in there with the stamps. The stamps are quite subtle, because I did gray granite on top of gray granite paper. It was just enough to give it some depth and a little bit of color depth. And then I've used this wonderful folder that I'm not going to say the name, because if I say it one way, Kiwis laugh at me. If I say it another way, the North Americans laugh at me. So I'll just leave it, but it's that folder, and it actually is perfect to coordinate in with this suite. It doesn't actually come in the suite, but it's one that if you're getting this, I would consider adding that in with it. Okay, then here's another one I did. This one is more in the clean and simple style. I really like this one personally. So it's all white except for those bright granny apple green leaves. And I've kept everything very simple and nothing too shiny, and used that folder then again in the background just for that little bit of texture. And this one actually you can get in a bundle of tutorials. So I have a bundle of 12 tutorials, each one done by a different designer, so 12 different designers. And that one is up on my PDF tutorial download store, which I'll put the link below. And really great. So if you've got this suite, then you're going to have 12 inspirational tutorials with a video, with measurements in both imperial and metric, and a supply list. So really good one to inspire you to use your things. Then this one maybe seems like it doesn't belong, but this right here is actually one of those little pots that's in the Bloom Where You're Planted or Plentiful Plants die set. So it's just another way to use these same supplies. And then my final sample is a remake of a side easel card that I did. So, but this one, we've got the plant hanging in the middle. So I've made like a little window here in the middle, and then it's just going to kind of suspended there in the center. So just something a little bit different and fun to use with these plants. I really like this hanging plant holder. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope some ideas here have inspired you to pull out your supplies and get crafting. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you have a comment for me, please leave that below. I always appreciate that. And please share this video and subscribe while you're here. I appreciate that too. And I'll see you next time. This is Jackie. Bye-bye.